Right, it's nearly 8:20. You're watching OTB AM. Gilly Flaherty, welcome back to the show. Good morning to you.
Hello, good morning.
Settle a debate for us. I mean, I don't really think it's a debate, but you might sort of give us your view on it anyway. We've been having a debate in the loosest possible fashion today as to what constitutes a volley. Shane, on your screen there, thinks that, the ball is allowed to bounce, and once it's reached its apex again, it's back into volley mode. I would have a different view that once it's hit the ground, unless it's a half volley, it's no longer a volley. What's your opinion on it?
Yeah, no, a volley, you can't have a bounce. Like when this bounce, that's mean it's reset, like it's done. You know what I mean? It has to be straight in the air, connection, no bounce allowed. If it bounces, no, you can't claim a volley after
Adrian set me up here because I had accepted I was incorrect, and now he set me up once
Gilly,
more.
I'm not going to lie to you. This is the first time he's really sort of, he's retrofitting his excuses.
And Gilly's a former professional footballer. I'm going to accept her opinion here completely. That's fact.
Right, we've so much to get to here. The international window done, the FA Cup break done, and we'll spend a bit of time talking about the Conti Cup final on Sunday maybe to begin with, and it's a big focus. And the last time we chatted was just after the semis, if I'm right. So it's Arsenal-Chelsea at Sellers Park on Sunday. Given what's looked like a general slide in form, and maybe understandable with injuries, etc., they've lost a little bit of touch in the WSL. This has suddenly become a very important game for Arsenal.
Yeah, it's a huge game because realistically, it's the only thing they can really win there. Obviously, they are still in the Champions League. You could say also they're still in the title race as well. But I just think for them, obviously the way I went to the game last week when they lost to Chelsea in the FA Cup, and I mean they just looked like a team that was playing with not much confidence, not the Arsenal that you used to see with playing out from the back confidently and creating a lot of chances and being clinical. And I know obviously they're missing Miedema and Beth Mead, who are two huge players for any team to be missing. But yeah, for me, it's a must-win game for them. Obviously, playing at Arsenal previously, we prided ourselves on winning trophies, and Arsenal haven't really done that in the last few years. So yeah, there'll be pressure on them to get a reaction as well from last weekend and get the win on Sunday.
They're brutally efficient and we are not, were the words of the Arsenal manager, Jonas Eidevall, after that game, which, in one regard, I'm sure he didn't mean it, but it does feel like a pretty damning indictment and a very hard thing to turn around over the course of a few days. Having been at the game, how does he turn it around?
It's difficult because I don't feel like Chelsea were that great either on the day. And speaking to Chelsea fans afterwards, like Chelsea, I'd say probably sat in second, third gear all game. It was a bit of wasn't a scrappy game, but it's what you expected. Players had just come back from an international break. Players were tired. It wasn't exactly electrifying, but Arsenal had two chances in the first half, a chance within the first few minutes to go 1-0 up. But they didn't take their chance. And I just felt like with Chelsea, you know that they're going to keep continuing to create, and you know that, for example, Sam Kerr, she's only going to need probably 3 chances maximum, and she's going to put one of them away. Where I feel like Arsenal don't have that necessarily at the moment. I don't feel like Blackstenius, the centre forward, has got a lot of confidence, obviously, which is natural after what happened in the January transfer window. But I just feel like Arsenal need to be braver to get on the ball. I felt like the two centre-backs for Arsenal, when they was getting it, players were running away. It seemed like players were scared to get on it because Chelsea's press was quite strong. And, they, as soon as Arsenal got the ball, there was a player around them. But I just don't know. I don't know whether Arsenal were playing with, obviously, the pressure last weekend because before the international break, they played Man City away and they were terrible, like probably the poorest I've seen Arsenal play. So they probably had that pressure to know that they needed to have a reaction and a better performance. But yeah, for me, I just think in that game last weekend, Chelsea were the ones who looked the most. They were clinical, but they looked the most threatening as well. And when they was going through, you sort of was banking them to put it away. So yeah, I don't know. I just feel like he needs to probably let the shackles off a little bit and give him more confidence to play.
I'm actually, from what you're saying there, almost a little bit more hopeful for Arsenal fans. But, you mentioned about Chelsea sort of been in second or third gear. So is that sort of, that you can look at that two ways, obviously, with the easy ability to slip it into fourth or fifth, or what's your view on that?
I just feel like with Chelsea, Emma's got the mentality in them where they're winners and they find a way to win. It might not be pretty, but they find a way to win, and there's never any doubt from going into a game that they're going to win. And I just felt like Jonas done an interview afterwards where he sort of just said we're getting closer to like nicking one off Chelsea, and it was sort of like I was a bit taken back by that reaction, because playing for Arsenal, not once when I was at Arsenal did we ever look at another team and go, "Oh, we're getting closer to beating them." We were the champions. Do you know what I mean? We was the ones who we never went into a game thinking, "Oh, we're getting nearer." Like, especially not against our arch rivals and one of the London teams too. So I don't know. There needs to just sort of be a confidence instilled back in with Arsenal that you want to be the best in the league. You want to be the best in London as well. You know. But Arsenal play in a lot of cup finals as well as Chelsea, but Arsenal have played in a lot of cup finals. So it is a cup final, it's a one-off, and you're hoping that a lot of players get up for the game and leave everything on the pitch.
Gilly, when I look at the schedule for March, it is a bit of March madness over the next few weeks. You've got 7 games in 25 days, I think it is, for both Chelsea and Arsenal. Which squad do you think is better equipped to cope with that workload?
I think Chelsea's is. I think Chelsea, obviously at the moment, they're missing Frank Kirby and Harder as well, who, when you compare it, Harder and Frank Kirby are just as important and just as good as players as what Beth Mead and Miedemar are to Arsenal. But you have players coming in for Chelsea who are making the team stronger, you know, and so when Frank Kirby comes back and when Harder comes back, Chelsea, their forward attacking line are going to be frightening. But I do think Chelsea have got the better squad, and I do think with Emma, it's good because she rotates players a lot and she gives players a lot of opportunity, so that when it does come to rotating, especially through heavy periods, that the quality of the team doesn't dip and players know where they need to be and they're match fit, you know, as well. They're not just sitting on the bench. But I think with Arsenal, when you do make a couple of changes to the team, you notice the drop in performance and you notice the drop in quality, where I don't think you can say that about Chelsea.
Is that volume of games a problem in your experiences for a professional footballer, or is it something that you look forward to because games usurp training in terms of enjoyment? Like, I have a quote here from Maheda Malongo, the Professional Footballers Association chief executive, which was not long ago. He says, "This is not a shoe factory. You're talking about human beings. Sometimes they get the feeling that we are moving in the direction that footballers are just machines." Is it kind of heading in that dangerous direction? Too many games in too short a space of time?
No, I agree with that. I think I don't know what the issue is in regards to the format for the WSL, but you think, for example, you take Liverpool, who weren't in the FA Cup last weekend. It's been a month since they last played a game of football, you know, and we're mid-season. So it's really hard. I think the best period for teams was obviously before this last international break, because we seem to be getting at least 1, maybe 2 games a week. But there has to be a line as well. Like, for me as a footballer, I preferred games because it meant I trained less. So I prefer playing matches all day, every day. So when we used to have a weekend and a midweek, for me, that's my bread and butter. You know, I love playing football and I love the game, the matches. So I preferred that. But then you've got to look at, I also then, when it comes to international breaks, I obviously got a rest during that period because I weren't away. Whereas players are now going away and then they're coming back and they're potentially doing 2 games a week. And obviously, Luke's talking about Chelsea and Arsenal being in the Champions League too. It is difficult. And obviously, what happened with COVID, the fact that there's a tournament, obviously we've got the World Cup this year, we obviously had the Euros last year, we've got the Olympics next year, and then it's not going to be to the following year. I think it's the Euros again, and then it's a break. So you're looking at these players, some of them are going back to back. They might be getting 2 weeks off at the summer at most. And they're still expected to perform at a high standard. And yes, of course, everybody's fortunate enough to say that football is their job, you know, like I pinch myself to say that I've done that. But at the end of the day, we are humans and players need to be looked after. And it's a physical job, you know, it's a very physical job. And obviously with Chelsea and Arsenal playing in the Champions League, that's another step up as well, like physically. So it takes its toll.
Even with jet lag, she's better than you was the chant. I'm sure you heard it when you were at the game last week from the Chelsea fans to the Arsenal fans. And we haven't mentioned her name yet, but we did talk about the Chelsea goal threat, and she definitely loves a goal against Arsenal as well. Sam Kerr, what are they going to do about her?
It's difficult. I said on Monday on a podcast, they said, how do you deal with Sam Kerr? And I said, it's hard. Sometimes you just can't deal with her. Like, she's not just a number 9 that sort of stays central and just holds up the ball. She moves across the whole line. She'll drop into midfield. She'll sit in the pocket between the midfield and the defence. She'll run on your back shoulder. She's to get the ball wide. And if I'm Chelsea and I'm obviously Emma, and I'm saying get the ball wide and just get the ball in the box of Sam, because even when you think she's not going to get there, she gets there. Like, she's so physical. She can out-jump anybody. And it is difficult to keep her quiet, but probably the better solution is to try and stop the service to her. You know, there's only so much defenders can do to stop her in a game. And it's a 1v1 at the end of the day in regards to that. But obviously you're looking at the centre-backs, obviously Leah, if she comes up against Leah, or Rafa on the other side, she makes it difficult for them because she doesn't just stay central and is just easy to be picked up. She moves across the whole line. So for me, it'd be, can we try and stop the source of service at point rather than trying to stop her when she has the ball?
Well, it'd be interesting. Easier said than done, I suppose, is the point. The last time we were on, we did chat a good bit about Katie McCabe as well, and whether she's been punished around all the transfer rumours. Obviously, there was the chat about the chest infection, and that certainly seemed to explain some of her absences, maybe from the Arsenal team at that stage. She did obviously start last weekend. Start again this weekend. Is that all? I think I asked you this exact question the last time, and we were hopeful more than not. But is that all done and dusted now and back to normal with Katie, or what's your view?
Yeah, I think he knows he needs to play her anyway. And I think it's silly in women's football if you potentially holding something against a player. If they wanted to go, obviously, she never really come out and said anything about it. But at the end of the day, she's still your player, you know, and you want... She's a very good player, so you want to get the best out of her. So pushing her to a side or not playing her just don't make no sense for Arsenal when they need her. I think obviously she didn't play in the West Ham game, and then people were saying obviously why she's not playing. Obviously she come on, but then against Man City she didn't play, and then she come on, and people were like, that game needed a bit of fight, it needed a bit of grit, it needed Katie, and she probably come on. She should have started the game. And then obviously last weekend she started the game in midfield, and she give him that tenacious, put your foot in, the making it tough for Chelsea, a bit like what Erin Cuthbert does for Chelsea. That's what Katie was doing for Arsenal. For me, she has to play because she's probably one of only a few players who are actually showing fight and sticking their foot in and not making it easy for Chelsea. So yeah, for me, he has to play her.
And has a bit of versatility as well, if needs be. Everything is pointing to a Chelsea win.
For me, yeah, I think Chelsea are the favourites going in, but at the end of the day, it's a cup final, and you don't know who's going to turn up and how players are going to be. So for me, I'd say Chelsea, but I don't think you can write Arsenal off in cup finals.
Manchester United could move 5 points clear at the top of the WSL this weekend. Gilly, Leicester City struggling at the moment, but they've won 2 of their last 3. Like, these are always dangerous games for table toppers, aren't they? Because complacency can set in, and Leicester are really, really fighting for everything they've got.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just talking about, obviously, I've talked about the Liverpool-Leicester game. Probably is a game when Liverpool thought that they was just going to... Well, they should have beat Leicester, because if you're looking at the position they are in the league and probably the players that they've got as well. But obviously, in that game, I watched that game, Leicester just had that fight about them. And obviously, Willie's got them very organised, very disciplined. I don't necessarily say they create a lot, but I think set pieces will be huge for Leicester going into this last period. But they are only 1 point behind Reading, you know, and obviously Reading have got West Ham, obviously who are above them. But for me, it should be a clear Man United win. But sometimes the WSL don't work like that, and especially coming off of the back of, obviously you had the FA Cup last weekend, you've also had the international break, but obviously WSL is a completely different mindset. And obviously Man United are potentially, could go 5 points clear and be at the top. So there is that sort of, they're going to want to win because they want to get that advantage on Chelsea. But I don't think Leicester will just sit back and make it easy for them.
And you've City Spurs as well, so potentially goes along expected lines as well. We'll catch up again over the next few weeks. Gilly, thanks a million.
No worries, thank you.
Thanks a lot. Former England footballer Gilly Flaherty on the line there to look ahead to the Conti Cup and the WSL for this weekend as well.